Shalom. Today I want to talk about self-control. And that we must have self-control regardless of how our body feels, whether we're tired or sometimes achy and tired. But we must not let our natural bodies or emotions control us. We have control over that. But getting to the point of truly not letting my body lead me has been a process. However, I've always been known as more of a get up and go person, and I've never was a slop dragger. Now, that term was used by Floyd's family. Throughout my life, my mom always told me in the face of difficulty, where there's a will, there's a way. And she would say that to me if, I was feeling like something that I couldn't do. And she would say, Sharon, where there's a will, there's a way. That was always, that was get up and go, do what you got to do. In my experience, I've had to go through many successive levels to overcome my body wanting to weigh me down with sluggishness or my emotions wanting to immobilize or slow me down. As I reflect back, a few of the milestone events that I tackled and had victories were, well, as a young teen or maybe even before that, jumping out of bed and getting outside to pick those weeds quick enough to avoid my mama coming up the hallway swinging that belt as she was coming. I'm yelling, I'm up, you know. And running past her, she headed this way with the belt, and I'm headed this way out to get those weeds. And that was something else because with the time that I can really think about, we lived in Indianapolis, and it was hot in Indianapolis during the summers. The other was getting up at 7:30, getting to a class at 7:30 in college, and that was best believe that was the only section that was available, and it was a required course. It was a world history course, and it was a Chinese professor that taught it. I remember that, but I was there. I had to do it. I was there. And then there were jobs that required me to be at my desk at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was there. And some of those were when I lived in Detroit, and some of them were when I lived in Pittsburgh, and it's cold in the winter then. Because I can remember in Pittsburgh, and it would feel like a ice pick going through your brain. Sometimes it would be so cold outside standing on the bus stop. But I did what I had to do. But I also grew up in a generation that your word was your bond. So if I said I was going to do something, I was going to do it. And people were known by how well they kept their word. When I was growing up, I had a relative that would flat out lie to me and my cousins, to the little kids. He would tell stories, and that they just weren't true. And I remember once he said he was going to give us $7, but what he did was take quarters and wrap them in aluminum foil. I just really didn't appreciate that. And I didn't like him, and I despised that behavior even as a child. And I purposed in my heart that I would not be like that and try as hard as I could to be truthful and to keep my promises. When I adopted infants, all that prior training came into play. Before children and the infants was Winston came into my home at 5.5 months and Zoe at 10 days. And they both had the same birthday 1 year apart. So when we got Zoe, Winston was 1 and she was like days old. So I had, children close together and they were very young. And before children, my time was my own. My sister even said to me, Sharon, why don't you get some children? All you do is watch TV. Now, that really was an accurate assessment, but what she meant was that Floyd and I had lots of free time, and we did. And we were trying to have our own children, but at a certain point, we said, hey, this ain't working. If we really want children, we should adopt. And so, but before I had children, I was happy eating TV dinners and having cereal for meals. And I knew I couldn't feed the junk to children, but that's another story about why I was eating it. All right. So cooking real food began as best I knew how. And I took some cooking classes. And I also eventually learned that pork and shellfish were not food. The biggest hurdle with children was realizing that my mind had to be focused on them all of my waking hours, and I had to wake up in the midnight hours to attend to their needs. And it wasn't about whether I felt like it or not. I just had to do it. And like it or not, I was on their schedule. I had to change diapers when they were wet, not when I was rested enough to feel like I wanted to do it. I had to dress them, bathe them, feed them, read to them, play with them, clean up after them, referee them. And there were times that I felt overwhelmed, but I learned it was just easier for me to do what I had to do and not listen to my emotions. Because it was easier for me to do something I knew I had to do and go in and do it than I had to fight against, oh, I don't feel like doing it, and and all that stuff. Because then that just makes added burden to get over to be able to do what you're going to have to do anyway. And so, and I definitely could not deal with feeling sorry for myself and other non-productive thoughts. That was just going backwards. But that was a natural side of the issue. When I came into the spiritual understanding of the power and authority I have over all spirits, including emotions, I do really have freedom. And my body has no power over me. Emotions have no power over me. And if it seems like they do, that's what I have allowed to happen, not what they have power to do. And that reminds me of Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self control. Self control. Against such things, there is no law. Thanks for being here with me today. And please like and share. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Shalom.